Hello, and this is Filter Optional, and I'm Chico West.
And I'm Shannon West.
And guess what? I'm the no damn filter in this relationship.
So true, and I am the filter.
And it's been like that for 25 years.
I'm the filter, I'm the diplomat.
I am not those
I'm
things.
the Enneagram 2.
I'm the Enneagram 8.
The Challenger. Yep.
Yep.
So we are definitely filter and no filter. It just is what it is.
You know, and we are, you know, you just said Enneagram. We're going to do a little more research on the Enneagram, talk about it more, but we're going to get
I want to do some
guest,
episodes on that. Yeah.
A guest or two. You know, I got to give a shout out to an old friend, David Henry. He hooked us up with, you know, an Enneagram specialist that we're going to bring on.
It would be
the
a
episode.
superstar guest, like for real.
For like drop the mic, but
Yeah.
before we say it, we gotta
So if
we
they
gotta
will,
spend a little time
if
with
they
her.
will give us the time of day, they certainly wouldn't owe it to us, but it would be awesome. So.
It would be.
Yeah.
And so she's an author, written some books.
And then we still need to have, so over spring break, when we were in Florida, we were supposed to do a show with
Andrea and Eddie Gallagher.
Yes.
Eddie was wrongly convicted and then acquitted.
Navy SEAL.
Yes. And they lived down. And then I think the last episode we did, we said, hey, wait for this next episode. But
We did, because we were headed to Florida, and then he had to leave town on, to take care of a family member or something.
and they're
and we
still
just-
excited, and we're gonna
Yeah.
connect
It's
with
still going to
them.
happen. It just
Is that the last time you guys did a show?
Yes,
God,
it's been a long time.
hasn't
has
been
been a
since
while.
before spring break.
It
Yeah,
has.
I miss it. We've had a lot going on. I've had a little bit of a colitis flare, and so you all have heard me talk about that autoimmune situation that I have going on the show. And so Chico and I have still maintained to not get COVID, so that's good. But I did have a little bit of a flare that is it always ends up being a setback as far as my energy and everything else, and so things take a back burner. But we are back. So.
But not just that, you've done that. I've on this golf.
Oh, well,
journey.
yeah, I forgot. And he's been out of town when I'm trying to hit, and he's like, well, you can rest and, without me around. And I'm like, yeah, but somebody still has to get up, early and feed the dogs and, make sure the kid gets to school or football. Actually, he's still doing virtual. But,
Yes, but that is. I went to Scottsdale, Arizona, and played in the Recovery Cup, and it was a good time. I was with my buddy Gary Fisher. There was a bunch of us, so I got a little time away, but I was gone for 5 days. Then I come back and I head back to Florida.
Yes.
This is what 4 times to Florida since
Yes.
the May. I maybe that's.
And Chico's kind of needy, and in another episode we'll kind of talk about the marriage situation. But so when he gets back in town, he's all like, "Hey, didn't everybody miss me?" And like,
No one really missed me.
he wants a parade.
Hey,
and-
I did.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you, Kev.
You're welcome.
That's
Thank
nice.
you.
I'll
But
send him-
so we haven't had.
I'll let you pick him up at the airport next time, because he doesn't believe in Uber, because he wants the attention. He wants somebody to care enough to pick him up at the airport.
But I went to Florida again for another golf trip, and so got to spend some time with my buddy David Lejeune and George Joseph, and Rick Hubbard was there as well. It was a good time doing that. So I've traveled a bunch. You've had a little flair, and now we're back in the studio with Kevin
We
again.
are, because it's time to start. It's time to start talking about helping people again with issues of addiction and codependency and marriage and family and all that kind of stuff. But I was fortunate enough yesterday to tour Maggie's house. That was it's Magdalene House, a nonprofit women's treatment program.
And it was the original
It
house.
was the original Gaston house that
I almost
bought
want to
and-
go grab the picture that I have in the other room.
No. It's not necessary, because if people are listening, they can't see it and everything. So it's gorgeous. And I just feel like that, without going into too much detail, I just feel like that property has been anointed. And I think God is going to use it to help people, but it encouraged me. So walking through it, I just
you
had
started
this-
sending pictures to
I know,
Dave and
I just
Deb
had
and
this
myself.
moment of like, I'm ready to get back to trying to help people. As flawed as we are, and I think we have something to say just based on our own personal like struggles and whatever. But
Well, and you think about, helping people. I like that you say that, Shannon, because still, okay, I still have my little private practice. I'm still doing a couple other things that we'll talk about,
Yes.
on this episode. But I
still
too,
get my daily text. I got a text from Nashville asking for a therapist in Fort Worth. I mean, I'm
Yes.
like, I'm not even a counselor or a therapist, people that are listening that don't know that or haven't listened for very long. I am just married to Chico, who clearly has made himself known in the industry and everywhere because he's the No Filter. But I still get daily. I'm still helping people. I'm just not getting paid for it right now. But
Well,
but I never want.
but
I never. It never. That never
a little
mattered, but go
sidebar.
ahead.
You'll like this. I'm not going to tell the joke, but Kevin,
Thank you.
I was in Florida and we went to this dinner, and it was not just guys, but it's everybody in the industry of addiction. And there was this couple that's from Jackson, Mississippi, and then Rick and Sylvia. It was Doug and Neely Lyon, and then Rick and Sylvia Hubbard, and then George Joseph, myself, and David Lejeune.
It's a big group.
And we're sitting, and it's everybody's sober. Most people are sober. Sylvia
Well-
is a normie. And so
They probably at a function like that. Generally, alcohol is not necessary. It's such great company, and it's always a good time. And it,
And it's-
anytime I drink. I'm a normie or whatever.
Yes.
That we might have to explain that. But when I'm with a big group of people, it's so uplifting. It's just like not
and
needed.
we
It's
we
fun.
have
It's
fun.
fun.
I
So
mean,
the normies are vastly outnumbered.
Yes.
But
Yes.
it doesn't
Yes.
doesn't impede on
take-
your.
And it
Jay-
kind
and
of,
it-
I mean,
on your
and,
fun,
to be,
yeah.
and to be totally honest, it doesn't, I mean, early on, it doesn't feel right to be like, they're all like, I'll have a Topo Chico with lime, or their favorite, I'll have a Diet Coke, or whatever their favorite, non-alcoholic beverages. And then you'd hate to get to you and you're like, vodka on the rocks.
You like to double.
you know?
Yeah. the only person who's like, yeah, can I get a
And then
double
you have the
Tito's?
whole table looking at you like, maybe this could go into our
adult shame, like kid
adult-
shame.
yeah,
Yes.
like-
we could do an episode on that. But Kevin, I'm sitting there, and I get back Monday night, and I get this text. Shannon's driving with me. Hey, Hubbard won't tell me the joke that you told, because the night before I'm sitting at this table and I tell a pretty
non-filtered.
non-filtered joke.
That's why he's not going to tell it.
And so this girl, Sarah, texts me, and I tell her the punchline, and she loves it. Then yesterday, Shannon, I was talking to Bowen, and Bowen says, oh, I talked to Doug Lyon, and he goes, hey, Chico's the only one that can tell this joke that is no filter,
Yeah.
and everybody loves it.
He gets a pass for some reason.
I don't
but-
understand.
And we used to, when we were first married and we were going to a bunch of weddings, because we were kind of one of the first ones to get married. So we would attend a ton of weddings. And if Chico had a joke like that, I had to teach him not to tell it like right when you sit down for like the rehearsal dinner or whatever.
Right. You
I'm
got to work your way into
Wait
it.
till everybody has a few drinks, because
But
that
no one
crowd.
had
But no one
drinks at this
He's like-
at this deal.
He's like dropping bombs, and I'm like, okay,
Yes.
well, are they gonna like it? Are they not? But
And it's one of my favorite jokes. I do have to give my buddy Gordo
well,
props, because
for
most of
every
my
joke that
joke,
you have, yes,
on most of my jokes. But let's
Okay.
get into helping people.
Yes.
This is a West, media production. We
Yes.
are the West. We are the filter and no filter.
we've kind of talked a little too much in the intro for my liking, but since we're just back, let's talk about a topic that I think is important for everyone to really understand. Do
And
you want me to announce?
You can announce it, because it's another thing that I'm still doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about interventions. And when I think of interventions, because I don't do it for a living, I've never done one, and I'm not trained to do interventions. And I actually, as an Enneagram 2 and someone that avoids conflict, I would run from an intervention, including my own probably. So we're going to talk about interventions. And I think that the show, you remember the show?
Interventions. on A&E.
It was outstanding entertainment. I mean, gripping entertainment.
Still
And
is.
It still is. And actually, back in the day, this is a little known fact, Kevin. Chico was A&E reached out to Chico specifically.
Oh man, that's
and
awesome.
asked him to do an after show. So they would show Intervention.
And
and
the
then
next show would
The
be
next show would be called Halfway.
It was like a follow up.
It would be a follow up, and it would be the guy, the people in Halfway House or whatever, and they wanted him to star in it. They literally did a 15-minute
pilot.
test pilot.
Yes.
pilot video to pitch to A&E. So they pitched it to A&E, and A&E was like, "Oh, I really like this. Like this would be a great follow up, but there's not enough
Drama.
drug usage."
Oh, that's
no.
true.
They said
but
there's
I feel
not
like
enough.
I totally watched that.
They
but
said there's not enough drug usage
Yes.
in the
they want
the
the
show.
salacious content.
They
is
want
what's-
the people to watch.
No, they
people-
brought a contract, and
They
the
did.
deal was they didn't want me. They wouldn't give me final cut. You know.
Well,
oh yeah, they're never gonna.
no.
They want to be able to do
and
it
Chico
twisted
said,
however
well,
they
then,
want.
So but Chico was like, I'm trying to keep people. This is like the next step after treatment. We got to keep people sober. You're not going to see drug usage.
Right,
You're
that's
gonna
kind of the
see-
point.
Right. So you're going to see great growth and whatever. And they're like, no. And then so A&E passed on it, and then there was a chance that MTV was going to pick up on it, but it was.
because like VH1 had Sober House, and probably it's kind of similar, except
It
Sober
was
House is celebrities,
before.
but-
It was before Sober.
It was
House.
before Sober House because they were trying to
This
get
was 2005.
And-
And Sober House was celebrities, not normal people. So.
Right,
Exactly, with Dr. Drew.
Yeah, Dr.
Exactly.
Drew.
So and we were literally pitched for the show. Chico was pitched for that show before Drew took it because the celebrity part of it raised the entertainment value.
That raised
You
the
can't-
stakes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway,
Good.
so I think that when people think about interventions, they're like, oh, I can't imagine my family member needing an intervention, my child, my spouse, my mom, my dad, my friends, or anything like that. And so it's kind of like the connotation of Halfway House back in the day. Now they call it sober living. There's a reason they call it sober living, because Halfway House carries a different connotation, like out of prison, sexual predators, and things like that. So I want you to help explain what an intervention is.
Well, going back to
That's probably a
going back to that
big
show,
question.
people
Yeah.
would ask me when it first came out, because I started doing interventions when we were first married. 1995, I did my first intervention. Shortly after
Right.
we were married.
And then you went off and got trained by that guru.
Yes. And so I did my first intervention in 95. I've done, I don't know how many, but people would ask me when interventions, hey, do you watch the show? I go, no, that's just like kind of watching work.
Right.
Right.
But I have
did.
seen a
I
few
did.
of the episodes, and I'm not, the few episodes that I have seen, I know some people that have been the interventionists that have been on the show.
Ken Seeley is my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah, I like him too. I still get emails from him about workshops and
I
stuff.
will not comment.
Go ahead.
Okay. I know him, and I will not comment.
Go ahead, Chico.
But that is something I do want to talk about, the difference with different people that do them and stuff like that, and how they do them. And, I question, well, fuck it. You said it. I question Ken Seeley's ethics, and I don't believe.
Maybe you just
in
talk about his
ethics.
manner and not him personally.
Yeah, I question
no
his
need.
ethics.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
and so that's that's me. Interventions. Here's the big difference. People we intervene on each other as couples. We intervene, on our kids.
If you have the tools to do that.
No,
Yeah, but
most people do.
Yes.
There's a difference between intervening and intervention.
Okay.
Okay, we intervene. When it comes to drugs and alcohol and people with that, hey, you should stop drinking.
Or even with grades, we
or
call
grades.
we email the teacher and we say we intervene.
Yeah,
right?
you intervene with me picking my clothes up and putting it in,
Yes, I do.
The laundry room.
the laundry room.
Yes.
That's what it's called. In case you forgot.
Yes, but we intervene all the time. The difference between intervening and intervention, especially when you're dealing with someone with addiction issues, the person with addiction issues they're masters at spinning it back around on you. So if I had the addiction and was active in my addiction and you're intervening on me, I would spin it back on you
So I'm
and
trying
make
to
it your issue.
intervene in a way that it's going to work for me. Like if I just maybe take all the alcohol out of the house.
Yes, and so that could be
Is that intervening?
That's intervening. An intervention, and what I like with the intervention is actually, in some ways, it's the greatest. I maybe that's a strong word. It's one of the best ways to show up authentically with your true self, with others involved, and get away from the lies and the manipulation. So a real healthy intervention, I'm talking global, and then we'll chunk it down. On a real healthy intervention, you're not just doing the intervention, if you're an interventionist, on the identified patient or problem, the person with addiction. You're intervening on the whole system.
Right, because
The system is broke.
we can only come up with our own system or our own process of intervening on a loved one, but we can't figure out how to close the deal to get a changed behavior. And
I think you can't.
Which is kind of where I think our human nature goes at it I'll use the word selfish, even though it doesn't feel selfish when you're kind of the victim of someone's addiction. You feel more like a victim, and so your mode of intervening is going to be selfishly motivated, if that makes sense. Like, how am I going to make that person better for my life? And
Shannon, I think you're right on track, because it's that codependency, it's that caretaking, it's that tunnel vision. It's like they're not looking at their stuff, because the active addict that's in use is destruction, is the Tasmanian devil, is turning shit up all over the place.
Well, then it builds resentment, because it's like, why am I having to this is not my problem. Why am I having to deal with this? Why am I having to come up with ways to intervene with this problem? Because it's affecting my life. And you're not even really, unfortunately, we're usually trying to take care of ourselves. But, unfortunately, we're usually trying to take care of ourselves. Sorry, Chico is sending signals to Kevin right now as I'm talking.
He's giving me up and down. I think he means his volume, but I guess it's the
I'm
air
trying to
conditioning.
have a smooth transition in my talking.
No, you're doing a good job.
I know,
I got
but
that.
Okay, we're
It is
done.
hot in here, though.
I'm freaking burning up, and so I'm intervening.
I'm going to keep talking.
Yes,
okay,
go for it.
So you did your little intervention on the temperature in the room.
Yes.
Okay. What I'm saying is that when we're operating, especially in kind of crisis mode, if we're stressed out, if we're tired, if we're anxious because of someone in our lives, addiction or usage, and all that
Well, an
kind of
addiction
stuff,
could be
we're
like eating disorder, gambling,
yes, sure.
spending. I mean, so you can do interventions on
Sure.
process addiction.
Workaholic.
Yeah, you can do interventions on process addiction. But what keeps people, is you're correct, Shannon, is that there's a lot of, you're making it, why am I doing this on them? And so a lot of times also people are fearful to do an intervention. They've seen
because
the
they don't
TV
know how
show.
to. I
Well,
don't know how. I mean, I wouldn't even know how to say the things that appear like on the TV show, because you need a mediator. of
Okay, but
sorts.
like what you were saying about how, A&E called me and did that,
Yeah.
pilot, and, they had a whole
I wish
production
we had
crew.
that video.
And
coach
yes,
stuff.
I know.
I don't know where it
I don't either, but it'd be funny to watch
It would
now.
be fun.
Yeah, if you had it, you should put it on like your YouTube channel or
Yes.
something. People
I
would
know.
love to see that.
It would
Yes.
be funny.
But the deal is, people want drama, and so a lot of the interventions you see on A&E, it's a lot more dramatic than that.
That's exactly what I wanted to ask you
Yes.
about, Chico,
Yes.
because everyone you see on TV, it's never a high-functioning person. It's always someone who's untethered, out of control.
And it's a shit show.
Yeah, welcome to the shit show.
It's also on your shirt.
It's
It's
also
all,
on your
oh,
shirt.
it is. It is on my shirt. Yes.
It's all over his
It's
face
all
too.
over.
It's everything.
It's everything. But that's what I deal with, is shit shows. When you do an intervention, the deal, what's
But
really happening.
you don't deal with like super visible shit shows. It's like it takes a
Sometimes they're super visual
Yeah.
shit shows where people are getting
Yes.
arrested, dealing drugs.
Yes.
Lots of crazy stuff. But a lot of times, the interventions I've done, it's really more the family members, maybe the employers, some other people
siblings or
that are
stuff.
seeing it, you know, the people closest to them.
Yeah.
You know, other people do know it. So most of the interventions that I've done, other people do know it, but our human nature is we're not going to say anything about it. So a lot of people that end up actually going to treatment and getting help, it's actually worked. Because all of a sudden they come back and they're going, wow, people are excited that I'm sober. But they were too afraid. So
Yeah.
getting back to that question, what keeps people from doing an intervention? They think of the TV show. They think that it needs to be a bigger shit show.
Yes.
They get focused on drugs and what kind of drugs they're using and stuff like that.
Like shooting up in alleys and
Or shooting up,
waking
period.
up in a dumpster. Yeah.
Or they're thinking about, you know, I did training for this one. It's like, oh, he's using, you know, hydrocodone and stuff like that. But after I spent some time with the family and, you know, the loved ones and stuff, found out, man, he drinks all the time.
Yeah.
And so it's really more about the behaviors. It's not about how much is being used.
Right. But so I think that it's an awareness, though, that if you're in a cycle with a loved one or someone that you're close to, that you think, if you even have the thought that they might need intervening on, or if you start to, like if it's a spouse and you start to intervene on them, how do you train your thinking to be like, wait, okay, what is my part in this? And who do I talk to, and how do I know if they're ready for an intervention?
Okay, so
And then how do you get over the fear of that you're going to be rejected by that person if you choose to
Well,
intervene?
that's the great thing is like hiring someone that's an interventionist that is actually trained. And you know, the deal is a good master's level clinician or doctorate in psychology, you know, that has all the training, you know, they can help facilitate those, especially if they understand addiction. You know, nowadays there's a lot of people that are interventionists and they do these trainings, and a lot of them are newly sober people or, you know, been sober a while. So they really don't have any much mental health experience. And so they might have some good recovery, but
right.
they've done this training. So they have some training, which is all right. But the key is, when you're looking for someone to help facilitate that, and I don't even know if you need a facilitator, but if you go down that route, is like, man, really interviewing that person, talking to them, asking them questions, you know, how many have they done?
So walk me through an intervention, because I think people only see, like when you watch a show like Intervention, all you see is the person using, and then you see like families in a circle in a room. Like, my personality and conflict avoidance and codependency is such that the thought of just somebody saying, well, you need to do an intervention on this person, and I'm just going to walk into a room and say, you need to go to treatment, like, terrifies me. Like that, you know? So walk me through some of the things that would make somebody like me feel better about the process.
Okay. And so there's some different techniques and some different models of intervention. You can do like the family first intervention, you know, the J's. I forgot their first name.
Well, what's the process?
They did that. There's the Arise. There's the Johnson O'Connor. So there's some different approaches on how people do interventions. You know, so a good interventionist is going to interview the person that calls them about the loved one that needs intervening. And so they're going to gather information and understand and get some history and understand the dynamics
so
and
that
what's going on.
could be actually just that step could be a good
That's the
processing
first step.
The first step, but just that first step could be a good processing and a good venting for the person going through it. Like, the person that's going through it probably hasn't talked to anybody else about it. You know, you suffer in silence a little bit, like trying to manage it or intervening yourself, and you're trying to. So that initial, just to make that initial conversation is probably important.
Yeah, and I've done a lot of those initial conversations where I haven't charged anybody and said, "Hey, you don't need me."
But you're also saying out loud what the person is doing to
Yes.
you. To someone that is not going to go spread it around town or gossip or whatever, you get to say, you know what? Well, okay, is this normal? He does come home drunk, 5 nights a week at 3 a.m. Like, and it's a good way to monitor and regulate what you've probably been manipulated.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I like that question, Shannon, but it's also a good way to get your thoughts down with someone that is trained to ask those questions, to understand, okay, hey, what are the behaviors? What's the use? Is there a progression? Does there need to be
asking the
detox?
questions.
How is the interaction with, kids or spouse or
I don't know if there needs to be
and stuff
detox.
like
I
that?
have no idea if it needs to be detox, but I mean, he takes, 15 hydrocodone a day. Well, yes. Okay. There's probably going to need to be detox.
Yes.
So you need somebody that can answer those questions besides Google.
Yes.
Or your best friend group that is just going to guesstimate, like, well, I don't know. I mean, I watched Intervention, last week, and they did have to do detox, but
and so there's that first initial deal, and then you start looking at, okay, we've talked about different treatment programs, we've talked about insurance on different episodes, we've talked about some of those things. That's all part of the first, second, third, phone calls. But then you have this time.
It should be.
Yes, it needs to be.
And if you are talking to someone that does interventions or is an interventionist and they're not asking you all those questions and you're not running through all that stuff, then you might need to get a second opinion.
Yes. And then here's the deal is like you start to, gather that information. You start to encourage them to who are some other people that are influential in this person's life. Are they open to it? So there's
and for example, I'm putting all this out there so that people that are listening can be like, oh, well, I didn't know that. Like, there was an intervention done on one of our family members, and the spouse wasn't included. Well, fiance, I think, but wasn't included because
they were protecting her.
Yeah, they were protecting her and not wanting to ruin the marriage because you can save the life and, save the marriage and all that kind of stuff. But so just because you think somebody in your life needs an intervention and needs help doesn't necessarily mean that you'll participate.
No,
Does that make sense?
Oh, for sure. And I was doing interventions and I didn't participate in my brothers because of my sobriety.
I was going to say that, but I didn't,
Yeah. No, because that was years ago because he was bitter and it was better for me to be somewhere else.
It kind of takes a professional, I think, that's trained to decide and decipher and whether or not you're going to be necessary or who's necessary for the process kind of thing. It's not like you just call up everybody that, I'm just pointing that out for people that are
and
listening.
so, but here's the deal. So you're talking about,
So
okay,
you
the
identify
first,
the people,
the first steps, what, and then you after spending time with this person and talking to them, if you're the lead in this to having the intervention for the loved one, you're going to, hopefully that interventionist is going to be, hey, maybe we do an invite intervention where you bring the family members and the concerned party, and it's a process. It's a longer process. Maybe that person needs, a quicker process.
That person has to be willing to come with the loved ones, right?
They have to be willing, but sometimes they might not be willing, but you're still working, you're intervening on the whole family. So the intervention is on the whole family and changing up some of those codependent or disabling behaviors.
Does the person know you're doing that? They're invited?
Yes, they would be invited. And that's what I'm talking about with one woman right now. It's like, her husband found out because of the her in-laws, and I go, well, let's make it an invitation and let's invite him and we can help, because part of the deal is helping her as well. So it's intervening on the system, not just the identified problem. And if you do that kind of typical one you see on A&E interventions where, everybody shows up in the room and, there's, everybody's concerned
And
for
they have
this
to
loved one. And,
They have to trick the person to
Yes.
get them wherever. Yeah.
and so what I do believe it feels, in some ways manipulative, but the addict is very manipulative.
Yes.
Okay. And so the situation is people have intervened on that addict for a while. An intervention is everybody getting in the room and being honest about the effects that person, their behaviors and their relationship with the substance or the process and how it's affected you personally. Don't talk as a we. The first part of the intervention.
But you don't send them off and say, hey, just, go figure it out. Like, go figure out what you're going to say, but just try to talk about how it affects you. You train the family. And
you train them.
You proofread some of the statements. And
Okay,
make
so
sure.
I jumped ahead.
Okay.
I appreciate that. So we've had, 2 or 3
So you've had the
initial
initial conversations.
conversations. We've thrown out, hey, who's involved? So maybe the interventionist now is talking to other people that will be involved. Then you have a training. And so in the training is you really talk about the disease of addiction, the disease of codependency. You expel some of the fears, because fear they're going to hate me, fear they're going to blame me, fear they're, all those things that there is some truth to it. If you're the spouse and you're intervening on me, I'm going to make you the bad guy.
Well, and you've probably, if it is a true addict and it's a true situation, then you've probably been made to feel like that you're making a lot of this up, like that you're.
Oh, that's part of the manipulation, and the addict's
so your
already.
fear, that's going to be a fear that you're wrong.
Yes.
Like that you're going to intervene, and you're like you're totally wrong, but.
Yes, and so part of the deal is in that training is you're talking about those fears. You give everybody that voice. All of a sudden, you're finding out there's more and more stories coming up, and how that person has manipulated and pitted other people against other people, and everybody's kind of just tired.
And when people get honest out of concern and love and care, instead of honest out of anger and
resentment
and wanting to see this person go away,
just kind of
just needle them. But that's why it's important to identify the people that probably need to participate and the people that maybe don't.
Well, and that's part of that training is if you're doing, that picture that you see on A&E is if you have a good interventionist, they can, have that discernment, and hopefully they're like a master's level clinician or something higher, maybe an LCDC. But they can train, okay, hey, is this person going to create more drama in the intervention for the loved one? We need to address them separately. They don't need to participate.
Right.
And so there's been people that, really want to participate, but their participation is more about going after and beating that person up.
And so it can be you that says, it's my opinion that you don't need to participate because of X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to help you walk through that. And it relieves someone else from having, like if it's a husband and wife and a child, and the husband is so angry because of accidents or arrest or whatever it is, and the mom but it relieves the mom from having to say, look, you don't need to be involved.
Yeah,
and it's his kid, or whatever.
And yeah, that's an example. The other example is more like, if it's an adult, he has adult siblings, there's parents involved, and there's some friends, and then you find out that there's all this old childhood bullshit.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, and this sister just wants to bash her brother.
Yeah.
And she's coming across as an angry bitch. It's like, hey, she's been hurt, and there's been some of this trauma that's unresolved.
Right.
And so, hey,
we'll resolve that later.
Let's address that later. It's better for you to sit over here. Or if it's an older parent with their adult child and stuff like that, and they're just pissed. Yeah. It's like, hey, they're gonna be a lightning rod for that person.
Right.
Let's keep them out. And it does, if the wife's there, it takes it away from her, because all of a sudden you have this interventionist that, hey, this is the show I'm running. I'm helping facilitate, so y'all can trust me or get someone else.
Right.
And so then you go through that process and they understand addiction. They begin to understand codependency. You know, they find out, you know, you also find out at the time what the what the person you're intervening on, you know, some of their healthy characteristics and stuff like that. And they're making notes. What do you love and like about that person? And so then you help train them. Hey, we're gonna follow a script. And how come we follow a script? Are you curious about that?
Sure.
Okay, great question, Shannon. Because here's the deal: when someone's in active addiction, the whole system's in active addiction, and if we don't follow a script, the addict will start manipulating. They'll start finding cracks.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And they will grab a hold of that.
So you have a planned script by you. I mean, not by you. It's obviously these people's experiences, but it's guided by you, and then they can't really deviate from the script, and that's why you're there on intervention day too, to help keep people on script,
focus, stuff like that. It's like, and you're also there to help give them hope.
Yes.
You know, I've done these interventions with, all ages, from adolescent to, women, men in their 60s and 70s. And, when people stay on script, almost most of the time they end up getting the help. And then the family members get the help. And so they're, that's where it becomes
because
positive.
they've learned so much through the process. Just, you do have a sort of magic, touch with interventions. Okay. I'm not going to take that away from you, but it's really the people getting healthier and getting tools. And then they make the magic happen.
They make the magic. I just see myself more as a facilitator.
Well,
I'm just,
you are.
maybe,
that's what you
maybe
are.
that's, maybe I have the magic touch of being a facilitator. I don't have the magic touch. I can help people share their heart, because I love this message. A message from the head affects the head. And when we're intervening on that person, especially one-on-one, we're trying to talk logic to someone that isn't logical in active addiction.
Right.
But so we want to share a message from the heart. And so part of that first paragraph, I like the 4-paragraph, concept. And the first paragraph is really just talking about, what this person means to you and, giving specific examples. The second paragraph is kind of the meat and potatoes, how their active addiction from specific examples, how it's affected you. 2 weeks ago, Dad, when I had to go bail you out of jail for your 3rd DWI, I felt angry, scared, lonely.
I missed a test.
I told myself that my dad's never going to get sober.
Right.
I was so embarrassed.
Yeah.
So you help them share it to where it's not, the person receiving it might feel shame, but it isn't shaming or blaming statements.
Right.
So you're taking away those things. Then the 3rd paragraph is really, hey, Dad, we got you a place at such and such. Will you go to get today? Give them the option.
Yeah.
And so they have a choice.
Right.
And then there's a 4th paragraph, and that's if their choice is not to get help. Since you're choosing not to get help, this is what I'm going to do for myself. Blah, blah, blah. And you find out.
I will not bail you out again.
I will not bail you out. I'm not going to cover up and say, hey, Dad, Dad's not feeling good or stuff like that. No, my dad's an active alcoholic.
Yeah.
Or, someone might say, hey, I'm filing divorce.
Right.
Or I'm firing you. Whatever the situation is, because I am tired of being part of the problem. So that goes back to that codependency. And I'm going to go at the same time, I'm going to start seeing a therapist. I'm getting help. I might go to on-site.
Right.
I'm going to get active in Al-Anon, those kind of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And talk about what you're going to do differently.
So it's not such a dramatic, it is dramatic, and it is, you need someone like you to guide you through that, because it is crisis.
Many times, sometimes you don't. That's why if I've interviewed people and I go, no, here's some tools, and I'll shoot them some emails. Hey, follow this script. It sounds like, man, you have a good plan. I encourage you to, follow this script. I don't think you need me. You can call me if you do. But you can discern talking to people that, might be pretty healthy and learn and know how to communicate in effective ways. But the problem is a lot of us don't know how to communicate. You talked about that when we were kind of bullshitting at the beginning of the episode. Is like we're going to talk about some other things, maybe communication between couples and stuff like that. It's like people get fearful. And the biggest thing that keeps people from actually doing an intervention, which is actually I think a really sign of love, because I'm honestly showing up and sharing my heart with that other person and how their actions and behaviors, affects me. That's it. It's not their responsibility to take care of me, but it's like, man, I can honestly show up and do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so having someone there, though, if it might be volatile and stuff like that, is someone that can calm it down and doesn't have the history of all the other people that are sitting in the room.
Yes.
They can, if they're good, they can diffuse the situation, walk them over, do something different like that.
Yeah. So I think it's a good thing to really understand that it is, an act of love, and it can be, not as stressful as and volatile.
Well, it's not. It doesn't.
It's gonna be stressful.
It's gonna be stressful, but it's also, hey, fear is all right. Fear is not necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
It can actually be a gift. Face everything and recover. I like that. Instead we get this false evidence appearing real, and we say fuck it.
Yeah.
So that's that. Those are some things, and if you want to understand more about interventions, I mean, you can contact us. We have a email. What's the email, Shannon? Filter optional.
I think it's filteroptional@gmail.com.
Yes. And so you can contact us. Please do. If you want to contact us to talk about other episodes that you might be interested in, or for us to expand, please reach out to us at filteroptional@gmail.com.
Filteroptional@gmail.com. That's correct.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Until next time, we're glad we're back in the studio.
Yes. It's good to be back.
Peace out.